Мир вам. Как хорошо, что у нас есть пианисты, саксофонисты и даже люди, которые запоминают Слово Божье и перед нами славят Господа. Слава Богу за это. Я надеюсь, когда каждый раз вы видите молодого человека, вы не думаете, вот, на английском языке будет сегодня говорить. Но я, к сожалению, буду сегодня на английском языке говорить. Пусть это будет общение, encouragement для некоторых и для других, возможность потянуться над своим английским языком. As we approach the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, we begin to look at our life. We begin to analyze it. And with Thanksgiving being this Thursday, we all have a chance to gather with our families over some good, really good food and have encouraging talks and have the presence of the Lord at our table. It's really funny because whoever's house I'm at, I'm usually the most talkative guy there. And I come up to various people, kids, adults, grandparents, and I ask them, what are you thankful about? We all have that person, and in this case, it's me. I always ask them, what are you thankful about? With the kids, it's usually ranging from toys to laughter to small little fintiklushki, as we call it, that they're thankful for. With adults, it's usually family, friends, blessings in the career that God has blessed them with a job promotion. And it ranges from God's love to ministries in church that people are really thankful about. And I'm more than sure that we are thankful for many other things, thankful for things that are not usually unsaid. This year for me has definitely been a roller coaster. It has had its ups and downs. It took me through various tribulations, and it built me up, but it definitely opened up my eyes. In the midst of my troubles, my happiness, my worries, my joys, I began to realize that where I am today is not because of where I got myself. It's where God has placed me, where He has guided me. It is because of what God has done. And I had to completely submit to God and give Him my control of my life to Him. And it is not I who control my life. It is because of God. He controls my life. And I'm thankful for that. God's control and His sovereignty in my life. I would like to read a passage from the Old Testament, Isaiah 41:10. And Isaiah speaks the following words to the people. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. With those words, we have to come to an understanding that God is not here temporarily, but He is here permanently. He is our ultimate refuge, and He is here to sustain us. As you could tell, my topic today is thankfulness for God's control. As people, we love to be in control. We love to plan each event, each little trip to the very detailed minute. And we need to know what's going on the whole time. And if it doesn't go by plan, we panic. We don't know what to do, and we just have this hard time of adjusting. We have to map out each and every single detail of our near future and find the steps to get it. For a youth, it may be final steps to prepare him for college. For some adults, it may be finding proper steps to be able to afford a home. Now, it seems that there's nothing wrong with loving control. But we are to realize a biblical truth for the love of control. My first point is love of control. As people, we panic under the thought that someone else might be controlling us. And we reveal in thought that we love to control our own lives. In fact, if I were to be honest, many of us love control. And I don't want to be controlled. You don't want to be controlled. Not a lot of people want to be controlled because it is a part of our sinful nature. We are rebellious. But how many of us have issues of control when it comes to our personal life? How many of us love to control our relationships? We love to control where our life goes, how I want my life to go. How many of us love control in no matter what leadership position we are at, even if it hurts everybody? We love control. And this idea of control is so embedded into our culture. into our lives and our value of freedom, that no one likes to be controlled. We believe that I can handle it. I know what to do. I know what is best. But we are hit with the truth that we are not capable of handling control. My second point is that we cannot handle control. We are people. We are sinners. As we enter this world, we are not entitled to anything. But we believe that we can control whatever is put into this world. And I'm not talking about controlling the small things like diets, budgets, sleep. I'm talking about the big picture of us not controlling. We cannot control what our future holds. We cannot control our relationships, our pain, our anger, our past. For a majority, we can control it to an extent, but we cannot control some things because they're out of our reach. From my life, from experiencing that, I've realized that if I put myself in control over some things, I kick God out. God no longer has control over the things because I have control. I don't need God. And that's what a majority of us face with. When we have a solution, we have a problem, we want to control it fully, and God is left out. We believe the lie that we can handle it, and when it goes downfall, we panic and we are discouraged. Once I had a problem in my life. It wasn't a serious problem, but it wasn't a small problem. I was faced with it, and I thought I could do it. I can go full ahead and fix the problem. Well, to my surprising astonishment, I could not handle the problem. Although I did some research, I tried to find the best methods, and I was stuck. I didn't know what to do next. So what does a young youth of my age do? He goes to his friends. I went to my friends. I told them the solution. They're like, yeah, it's no big deal. Like, we can do it. And we tried a couple of methods. Didn't really work out well. And the next step is go to a pastor. I want to see what they have to say. So I sat down with one of the pastors from church, and we talked about it. And it came to my realization that although I was praying for some things, I was praying, God, give me strength, and God, give me wisdom. But I did not pray that, God, I am putting this at your feet. I'm surrendering and I'm giving you control. That's a thing that from our conversation, the pastor pointed out. You see, I was so worried about fixing the problem and asking God to give me strength and guidance, but I did not realize that I had to surrender my problems to Him. I had to stop controlling my life and give a full 100% of it to God. Jesus. Rather than controlling or choosing to control his own life, Jesus instead chose to live a life of surrender and surrender everything to the will of God. When Jesus went to the wilderness, he was tempted. It was an exercise to see where he stands on seeing control of his life. Would he be in control, or would he let God be in control? When Jesus was on the cross, he was tempted to take back control first by people passing by, and they said the following words, that you who are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself, come down from the cross if you are the Son of God. His control was tested then. Even chief priests, teachers, and elders mocked him, saying, he saved others, but he can't save himself. He's the King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross, and we will believe in him. Jesus' control was tested. Realizing you can do nothing on your own is my third point. You see, instead, as our scripture today shows, that Jesus humbled himself by becoming obedient to death on the cross. Jesus would go on to confess that I can do nothing on my own. Jesus was half man, half God. If Jesus said the following words, why are we saying that I can control everything? Why are we saying that I can handle it? If Jesus, half man, half God, said that he could not do anything on his own behalf. Jesus calls those who follow him to do the same. Jesus calls us to surrender our life to Christ, our life to God. Matthew 16:24 through 25 says the following words. Matthew 16:24 through 25 says the words, then Jesus told his disciples, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. Again, Jesus' answer to our control problems are simply surrender. We are called to surrender, but we often get scared away at the very small detail of surrendering. The last thing I want to do is give up control of my life. Many of us still live under the little simple trick that we are in control of our lives, when in fact, nothing can be further from the truth. Times when we have taken control and messed up along the way is proof enough that in our lives we can do nothing to stop it. Still, letting go of control and giving it, let's just say, to God is sometimes a scary idea for us people. It's something that we all face. It's not just me. Maybe it's the word surrender that we are getting really scared about. Our world never considers surrender a good thing. Looking at all the wars, hearing surrender, it often shows defeat. No one wants to lose, and no one wants to admit defeat. My next step is surrender to God. But surrendering to God is a different story. It's not defeat of yourself, but although it is a defeat of sin. To surrender, it means to let go and give possession or control to the other. 2 years ago, I happened to be in a serious car crash. Many of you may know it, many of you don't, but to clarify it, God definitely woke me up, and he showed me that he should be in control. I'll quickly summarize the story to show how God has used that situation to wake me up. I was at a small birthday party for my friend, and he lives a ways down up north. It was a terrible snowstorm. It was just starting, and I didn't put much thought to it. It was getting a little bit late, and I went to sit in my car, and there was a voice in my head that said, "Put on your seatbelt." My mom didn't text me that night to put on a seatbelt, so I just shrugged it off, and I went on my road. About a mile later, again, put on a seatbelt. So I completely ignored it, as a youth would, because if you don't put on your seatbelt, you're cool. And it happened that I was driving on Highway 65 up north, and usually there are 2 lanes and 2 shoulders. It was so bad that there were no 2 lanes. There was just 1 lane, like we were driving on the dotted line. And it was a severe weather condition. Once I got closer on the road, I was kind of feeling comfortable, 2 lanes, still holding low speeds. And I was driving, and when we as drivers have a feeling of like the steering wheel, we know how to properly coordinate in the wintertime. By this time, I had my seatbelt on. So I listened to the voice in my head. I was holding the steering wheel, and I was in the farthest right lane. And my car turned up a little bit, and quickly I grabbed it, and it started fishtailing. I got scared, but I was holding on to the steering wheel. I got more scared because my car was going like this. I could see the car behind me, and it was going like this. And all of a sudden, I started going down a ditch, and I'm still holding it. And something just said, "Let go." And I just let go, and my car completely spun out. Last thing I remember was I was driving, I went into the ditch, and there was a big electrical pole which was aimed towards at me. At that point, I knew something not good was going to happen. So by that moment, the airbags hit off, and I blacked out. The first thing I could remember was a door opening and pulling me out. At first second, I thought I passed away. I thought I was dead, and something like an angel was pulling me out. And as I was pulled out, I kind of gained consciousness after like 5 minutes, and it was the guy behind me out of his truck. He pulled aside and like pulled me out. I went to look at my door where I was hit, and there was nothing there. The only thing that was hit was the back bumper. So this has been a touching story for myself, knowing that I could have passed away because of this little minor incident. So when we speak about surrender to God, We have to surrender everything to God. When we surrender, we aren't losing defeat. We are simply moving from a bad place to a good place. An author called C.S. Lewis wrote the following: the more we let God take us over, the more truly ourselves we become because He made us. When we surrender our lives, few things happen. Following God's lead without knowing where He'll take you. That's the first thing about surrendering your life. The second point is waiting for God's timing when knowing it will not come. The third point is expecting a miracle without knowing how God will provide. Surrendering may either be a small reminder or completely a new idea, but it all comes down to being born again. When we surrender ourselves, we are giving our life to Christ. We are becoming born again, and a new life is formed in us. It means living a Jesus-like life that is pleasing and acceptable to God. A man who has not sinned in his whole 33 years, that is someone who we should mimic. That is someone who we should follow. And this is honestly the most perfect example from the Bible, because he led with not his will on his agenda, but God's will. So my question to you is, how do you know if you have surrendered yourself to Jesus? How do you know that you let go of the steering wheel and gave God your control? You surrender to God when you rely on Him to work things out instead of trying to manipulate or force your agenda to control the situation. You let go and let God work. You let Him be in charge instead of trying harder and trust more. When faced with a difficult problem, a tribulation, you don't ask, what am I going to do next? You ask, God, how are you going to take me from point A to point B? You stop relying on yourself, on your own abilities, and you let God do the work through His provision and through His power. Out of surrender comes a willingness to sacrifice, no matter the cost. Surrender is the pathway, the entry place to maturity as a believer. When we surrender ourselves to God, we let God work in us, and we become more Christ-like. With sacrifice also comes a commitment. Not many people are willing to take that. So if you really think about it, there are two choices in this life. Either you live a self-centered life, or you live a Christ-centered life. In our church, we believe that it is much more better and beneficial for you to live a Christ-centered life, because putting away your needs is far more better than being all focused in your own needs. And the funny thing is that there's no in-between. It's either you live a self-centered life or you live a Christ-like. There's no middle point. There's no place and time to be lukewarm. You're either in or you're out. Our surrender to God is a statement that we will not live for the things of the world. We will not be so overwhelmed in our worries and our problems. And those things, when you think about it, those things will no longer drive you. Those things will no longer give you fuel. That fuel will always run out, but the fuel of God never runs out. So with this to say, you have to praise the giver, not the gift. When you see a lot of things coming into your life, you shouldn't be praising it. If you got a beautiful job, if you got a beautiful house, if you got a beautiful family, you don't have to praise that. That's simply a byproduct of what God has given to you. You have to praise the giver. Now, for this, I had to really analyze my life and ponder what I am most thankful about. There are many things that stood out to me, but the thing that stood out to me the most was God's love and His control over my life and His sovereignty. Giving my life, giving my problems, giving all the baggage I have on my back to Him at His feet was the best thing I could have ever done in my life. Plain and simple, I'm just a regular sinner just like you guys, and we're no longer perfect. So what I have to say is that we can't handle what the world has to offer to us. We can't handle how the devil will try to trip us. Instead, we needed a way out, and that is because through the death of Jesus Christ. We our direction would have been in hell if it weren't for the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. And it all started with him putting God's will before his own will. I needed a way out as far as everyone is concerned. Everybody needs a way out of the sinful life. And for me, it was surrender. I had to have someone step in. In this case, it was Jesus Christ. I gave up my control to God, and now, majority of the time, I live in peace and assurance that no matter what I have on my plate, all the best will be given to me, because all the best is God's. And although it is sometimes hard to have God with you, God on the same table as you, it is something we all should do. We should always praise God and not the things he sends us. So for this Thanksgiving, the thing that I'm most thankful about is God's sovereignty, God's control, and God's sacrifice of Jesus on the cross. With this, I'd like to say amen. Дорогие братья и сестры, спасибо, что вы научились что-то новому. Спасибо, что вы внимательно слушали. У меня будут, наверное, какие-то переживания сейчас переводить все на русском, но я постараюсь самое лучшее. Мы, как люди, мы любим контроль. Это в нашей грешной, нашем sinful nature, это в нашей системе, и мы любим все контролировать. Но иногда приходит время, когда мы понимаем, что мы все не можем контролировать. Некоторые вещи мы можем контролировать, а другие вещи мы просто не можем трогать. И все контролирует Бог. Мы должны отдать наш контроль, мы должны отпустить наш руль и дать все в руки Божьи. Потому что, когда мы все отдаем Богу, Бог нас благословляет, и Ему слава за это приходит. Пусть это вкратце будет уроком для всех нас, что если мы не можем отдать контроль в нашей жизни Богу, тогда у нас ничего не получится. Мы просто будем жить жалкую жизнь. Но когда мы даем контроль Богу, Бог будет работать в нас, Бог будет благословлять нас, и все будет в славу Божью. С этим я хотел вас всех пригласить к молитве. Аминь.